Madeleine McCann. They called it a family holiday, a week of sun-soft evenings and sea breeze curtains, and then a name became a headline. Praia de Luz, breathed as resort towns do, cutlery chiming at the tapas table, laughter slipping down whitewashed lanes, the kind of night that teaches adults to trust the rhythm of routine. Every half hour, chairs scraped, someone stood, someone checked, someone returned, and the metronome of reassurance kept time with the clink of glasses. In a room not far away, a small bed cooled too quickly. Later, the story would sort itself into props. A window shutter lifted into night air, a soft toy with a well-loved nose, a stroller folded by the door, a wristwatch glancing against a wine glass. A mother ran. A father raised the blinds. Neighbors came, the space filled with footsteps and voices, and the terrible grammar of the word missing. By morning, the apartment was already learning how to forget. Hands touched what hands should not. Sheets shifted. Questions multiplied. Someone said abduction before anyone could say anything else. The sea kept on breathing. 2 sightings, they said, as if 2 could make a truth. One man crossing a narrow street with a sleeping child, another moving quickly toward darker lanes. The descriptions overlapped like tracing paper. Pajamas, small pale legs, a head in the crook of an arm. Memory did what memory does under streetlights. It turned certainty into weather. Weeks unspooled, and the circle widened. A detective who didn't know how to sit quietly was moved aside, then wrote a book that refused to be shelved. Specialists walked dogs through empty rooms. The animals paused at skirting boards and sofa corners, nosed at a favorite toy, years of training telling them something language could not. In a parking lot, a boot lid rose on a car hired long after the night itself, and the dogs turned their heads in the same uncanny way. Science said, be careful. Instinct said, listen. The space between them became a courtroom without walls. There were maps of phone pings, and a man with a record living a drive away. A name that would arrive years later, like an undertow. There were parents at a podium, before there were suspects in a dock. Posters on airport glass. A fund with a slogan that sounded like a vow. A prime minister called. Cameras gathered. The couple knelt in Rome, and a white skull cap bowed over their hands. Compassion, said some. Narrative, said others. The world leaned in. Timelines braided and frayed. At the table, the friends described their half-hour tide, each check a thread intended to hold the night together. The thread slipped. A shudder first spoken of as forced wasn't. A child's twin slept on, hushed by innocence or exhaustion, or something no one could prove. A mother, under legal advice, let 48 questions fall to the floor unanswered. Silence, like sound, makes a shape. A hire car, chosen from dozens, became an object lesson in the cruel arithmetic of coincidence. A toy was washed. A cleaner passed through too soon. In files and photocopies, a family of strangers said the man they saw that night looked like the father. He said it wasn't. The file did what files do. It waited. Policing changed postures. One force took the case, then another reframed it, narrowing their gaze to a single word and letting the others drift. Accident, overdose, staging, trafficking. Abduction held the center. Alternatives orbited like unlit moons. Reporters argued with detectives. Lawyers argued with reporters. The internet argued with itself. Somewhere inside the quarrel, a small girl remained exactly 3 years old. Through the years, new names arrived like weather fronts. A German suspect. A statement that sounded like certainty without the weight to anchor it. Courtrooms opened, not for a trial, but for the right to publish a theory. Appeals unspooled, then respooled. Money flowed and thinned. Hired eyes scanned crowds and doorways in distant cities, and the posters faded in sun that didn't care what summer it was. What happened in that room? The question sits where the bed sat, and every answer you place there rearranges the furniture. A stranger's hand at a window, a miscalculation in a place meant for sleep. A terrible minute disguised as a crime of opportunity. A plan indifferent to the way a child says her name. Each requires faith in a different failure. Of locks, of judgment, of mercy, of chance. There is a way the brain bargains with the unbearable. It makes patterns from repetition. Dogs that stop in the same corners. Timelines that always fray at the same half hour. Officials who always arrive too early or too late. A shutter that is always opened by the right hands or the wrong ones. It is from these patterns that suspicion is born, not as a hobby, but as a kind of grief. And yet, beneath conjecture and counter-conjecture, there is only this: a door that opened onto a room that is now a myth. A balcony that looked over tiles washed clean every morning. A family that set down cutlery and did not return to what they left. A child whose likeness became an icon, whose birthday is a press date, whose eye was once described in posters like a miracle and like a curse. Some nights the story feels like tide work, etched, erased, etched again. Some days it feels like choreography, every step in place, the music too loud to hear the missed beat. Most days it is simply absence, institutionalized and televised, and argued over until the edges of the whole are smooth. They called it a holiday. They call it a case. It is, for most, a measure now, a way to mark how we believe the powerful are held, how we think stories are made, how quickly care becomes brand, becomes shield. It is also, stubbornly, a missing person. If there is an ending, it is not consented to be found. If there is a truth, it has learned how to hold its breath a very long time. The ocean keeps breathing. The shutters lift in the breeze. The soft toy waits on a chair in the mind. For Madeleine, may the light that knows where you went know also how to lead us there.